Charlize Theron, I make no bones that I do not like Charlize Theron as a person for how she's raising that boy into a girl. But I will keep my personal gripes aside to properly break down this movie. It is a very good movie based off the old comics from like 20 years ago, I believe. Okay. Let me try something real quick. Hold up. I like that tint. No, no, it's a better tint. I'm playing with light filters. Okay, the old guard. Basically, the theme for the old guard is pay it forward. At the end of the day, it is a theme of paying it forward. It's probably the simplest way I could describe this movie to you. But there's some background stuff that I want to cover with you guys because there's a lot to as far as this. Okay, so it's a 4-man team. It's Joe, Nikki, Booker, and Andy. Andy is Charlize Theron. Okay, so in the beginning, Andy mentions in a monologue that she's tired of it. Okay, and then Andy meets her team in Morocco. They've been hired to do a job by an ex-CIA agent named Coughlin, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. You know him from playing next to Denzel in, I think it was The Inside Man, and he did Kinky Boots. Okay, he did Kinky Boots as well. Okay, so they're hiring for a hostage situation in the South Sudan. Andy rejects the idea of doing repeat missions. Andy takes a pic for family and deletes one of the pictures of the photos of her in it in the background. So she's all super secretive. She doesn't want people to know who she is, or All right. So Andy has become disenfranchised by watching the news. She believes their efforts are not helping. Okay. Andy, Booker, they meet Copeland. Copeland mentions his wife died from ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. He gives them intel on the mission. 17 students had been kidnapped. Andy agrees to take the mission. Now, the old guard for my military folks, 3rd Infantry Unit, America's oldest active duty infantry unit since 1784. That is what the old guard refers to. Military guys, what I'm talking about when I say these type of things, okay? So then the team infiltrates the compound. They breach the cellar door to find an empty room. They've been set up and ambushed. They are shot and killed. So as the gunmen pretty much wrap up the scene, they come to life. They heal from their wounds and then proceed to kill all the hitmen a la John Wick style. So the whole gun fu thing is done to death in this movie. It's done well, but we've seen it before. Really, all credit goes to Chow Yun Fat in those movies. So now everyone's, gun fuing it in their movies. Copeland then watches via CCTV and has a Civil War picture of Andy on his desk. Andy's very, very old. Very old. We'll try and pick out how old she is. He calls Steven from Merck Pharma that he has the footage of them. Andy says the world is getting worse. And to go find Coughlin. Now we fast forward to Afghanistan. Nile, the young sister in this particular movie, she leads a female squad of Marines on a search for a terrorist. Nile finds the terrorist and shoots him, injures him. While tending to his wounds, he slashes her throat, killing her. The team back at Andy's team, they have a dream of Nile and vice versa. So they dream of each other. Okay, so in this universe, all these immortals, they dream of each other. So that's just one way for them to locate each other. Okay, Nile wakes up in the infirmary. Her team looks at her kind of crazy because they're like, yo, you were dead. You were dead. She doesn't understand how she survived or how she recovered, yada, yada, yada. Andy then questions why now they haven't seen another immortal in 200 years. And they set off to find her. While the team goes to find Coughlin, Niall's team questions her miraculous recovery. In London, Stephen talks to Merck from Pharmaceuticals as a possible cure for dementia and the extension of the human life cycle. Coughley shows Steven the footage of the team. Steven wants them all captured. Niall has orders to go to Germany for more tests. Okay. Andy then kidnaps Niall before she can leave. They were going to lock her up and test the hell out of her, basically. Rashad, what's going on, bro? I see you. Sound out. Sound out. You can't hear me? Can everybody hear me before I continue? I'm assuming everybody but Brian Brooks can hear me. Brian, I think it's you, bro. Okay, you're in. All right, everyone. Okay, Truth Teller. Oh, Lord Jesus. Truth Teller somehow has meandered his way. All right, cool. So during the drive, Niall tries to escape. Andy then shoots Niall in the back of the head. Niall recovers from the gunshot wound. She's immortal. Okay. Andy gives Niall the lowdown. Niall begins to pray. Andy says God doesn't exist. Now, mind you, I noticed a lot of common themes with movies with old characters. They all pretty much say God doesn't exist. So that's a common theme with these particular movies. Niall then says, my God does. Andy says, there was a time she was worshipped as a god. Niall attempts to hijack the plane. Andy shoots the pilot and tells him to play dead in Russian. Andy begins to spar with Niall. Andy breaks her arm and leg. Of course, she recovers. Niall recovers faster than the others. Niall agrees to disappear from family and join the team. Outside of Paris, Niall meets the rest of the team. Niall is told they fight for what is right. Niall says the dreams are like homing beacons to find each other. Oh, I'm sorry, Nick says that. Booker was the last one they found since 1812. Nicky and Joe met during the Crusades. So this is how old these guys are. They met during the Crusades. They were in. Okay, here's a twist. They were enemies. Now they're lovers. Joe and Nicky are guys. So I guess. Okay. They just had to throw that in there. Andy predates everybody. She derives from the Scythians. Okay. Scythians. That's an old clan of people. Let me find it real quick. Where are my notes? Where's my notes? Oh, shit. Don't tell me I ain't got my notes. Bear with me. I'm trying to find the Scythians, y'all. Here we go. Okay, so Andy's name is shortened. Her full name is Andromache. Andromache. What is Andromache? There's a picture of a Greek tragedy in the movie on Coughley's desk or on his backboard. Okay. Andromache is a tragedy in 5 acts by French playwright Jean Racine. Okay. Basically, it tells what happened to Hector's family after Achilles killed him during the Trojan War. Okay. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not even going to get into all that. It's not that serious. I just want to find the Scythians part. Okay, here we go. Scythians. Scythians from Greece, known as Scyth, Saka, Sake, Iskuzai, or Askuzai, were nomadic people who dominated the Pontiac steppe from the 7th century BC up to the 3rd century BC. They were part of the wider Scythian cultures stretching across the Eurasian steppe, which includes many peoples that are distinguished from the Scythians. Okay. Scythians are generally believed to have been of Iranian origin. They spoke a language of the Scythian branch of the Eastern Iranian languages and practiced a variant of ancient Iranian religion. So that's how old this character Andy is in this movie. Extremely old, okay? We're talking basically 3rd century BC. Now, Andy says they're not completely immortal. They can die. Andy says one day your wounds no longer heal. Nobody knows when and why. Later that night, Niall dreams of a woman locked in an Iron Maiden drowning in the sea. She kept drowning repeatedly over and over. Now we're getting to some backstory. If you read the comics, then you know in the comics, Andy's former friend, lover, they go at it because basically Andy's former friend, lover has grown to really hate humanity for what they did to her and just overall suffering and stuff. Okay. Now, Quinn. Quinn was a mongoloid, the first immortal Andy ever found. They were together during the Salem witch trials. They were captured. Andy and Quinn were then found guilty of witchcraft. They tried to hang them. It wouldn't work because they kept recovering from their broken necks. And they were thus cementing their status as witches. Okay. But then Quinn was locked in an Iron Maiden and then thrown overboard into the sea. Andy escaped and tried to find Quinn to no avail. Andy blames herself. Quinn was in the sea for 500 years. So this woman that's basically immortal kept drowning over and over, locked in this Iron Maiden in the bottom of the sea. Okay, so I would assume when she gets out, she's pretty angsty. All right. Later that night, the team is ambushed and Joe and Nikki are captured. Booker and Andy and Niall go to Paris to retrieve the guys. During the abduction, Joe professes his love for Nikki and they kiss. Oh god. Ugh. Anywho, okay. Booker, Andy, and Niall go to one of Andy's cave hideouts, and it's an abandoned mine. There's ancient artifacts, an old Victorian painting of herself, a Rodin sculpture. Back at Merck Pharmaceuticals, Joe and Nikki are tortured for the sake of science. Merck wants to crack the genetic code to make cures for diseases. Okay. Earlier during the ambush, Andy was stabbed. She's still bleeding. Andy has lost her regenerative powers, so she can no longer heal herself. Okay. Booker tells Andy his third son died of cancer in 1942. He tells Andy, if you try to touch the lives of loved ones, they will ask for your attributes. You'll later watch them suffer and die, and they'll tell her that she doesn't love them. Okay. During flashbacks, while Booker's son was dying while he was dying, his son cursed him. Okay, so this is part of the curse of being immortal. The family wants what you have. When you can't give it to them, they'll curse you for having it. Okay, this is like the lifelong grief of an immortal, basically. Andy goes to a store for medical supplies. The clerk then takes her to the back room and bandages her up. The clerk tells her, "Today I put this on your wound. Tomorrow you help someone up when they fall." So once again, the pay it forward theme is very apparent in this movie, and it's going to be very key at the very end. Okay. Andy has a flashback to when her immortal companion died in battle. He was a brother. He got cut in the stomach, and then he's laying there dying. His wound's not healing, and they're like, "What's the problem? He's not healing." And he's like, "It is time. It is time," as he dies. Okay. Coughley and Merrick have a falling out. Merrick wants to do indefinite testing. Okay. Niall reveals to Andy her dad was Kaya. Andy says she's forgotten what her mother and sister look like and admits she stopped looking for Quinn. Booker finds the Merrick lab in Surrey, England, to go to rescue Joe and Nikki. Booker hands Andy a pistol. Niall has a change of heart and discovers a full clip in the trunk of the car and realizes Andy has been given an empty pistol. Meanwhile, Andy and Booker find Coughley. Coughley has been keeping a timeline of Andy and her team's exploits of all the people they've helped. So he has this huge wall, and he's got the strings and it's linked to the pictures. So, and he has links to every person they've helped. Okay, which is going to be important towards the end. Keeping timeline. Okay. Booker then shoots Andy in the side. Copley reveals he's been tracking her kind for years and wants to crack their code to their immortality. Okay. So the Merc Merc comes in. They capture Booker. They realize Andy's no longer healing. They all get captured. Then Nile has to come in. She comes in. She breaks into Coughley's office. They have a coup d'etat. She's like, I'm one of the new ones. Blah blah blah. So then she goes to begin her assault on the Merck Pharmaceuticals to go rescue her team. Okay, so she finds the team. In this third act, it's a pretty decent fight choreography, gun choreography. It's pretty well done. You see in the parts where Nile uses her body as a shield to protect Andy from getting shot, because now they realize she can no longer heal. Okay. Andy tells Nile, she reminds her that people are still worth fighting for. Merrick ambushes Andy, and they have a gun drawn on her. Andy asks Nile, "Do you think he speaks Russian?" Which is going back to the plane fight, because she talked to the pilot in Russian. So then Nile shoots Andy, Merrick shoots Nile, and then Andy makes a maneuver, grabs her combat axe, then chops Merrick in the neck, and then Nile grabs Merrick and launches them both out of a 15-story window, landing on top of a car, killing Merrick. The team all come downstairs while now regenerates, and then the team drives off. As punishment, the team banishes Booker for 100 years for his betrayal of the team. Coughley fixes Nile's death to killed in action. Okay. So then Coughley explains Andy's timeline for the last 150 years. So every person they've helped became somebody to either help push humanity forward. They created some great invention. So the whole thing is paid forward because of Andy and her team's helping help propel the human civilization for good. You understand? Okay. What's catching? I think that's it. Yeah. I listen. It was decent. I watched it. I don't, like I said, I don't care for Charlize Theron like that. I really don't.